government is outlining how it will integrate principles of equity and environmental justice into our federal ocean activities. It'll help advance the Biden-Harris administration's ambitious environmental justice goals by working to improve the well-being of people and communities connected to and dependent on the ocean. The Biden-Harris administration believes that people of all races, backgrounds, incomes, abilities, tribal affiliations, and zip codes should have equitable access to the benefits provided by the ocean. The U.S. Ocean Justice Strategy, called for in the administration's Ocean Climate Action Plan, reflects President Biden's strong commitment to environmental justice for all, including the people of the ocean, coasts, and Great Lakes. Now, I know you want to actually hear from the true environmental experts, so I'm going to turn it back over to them. But thank you for allowing me to share this space with you. And again, happy Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Mahalo. Mahalo, y'all.
Mahalo. Thank you so much, Erica. Next, we will shift to the question and answer portion of this virtual roundtable. I'm excited to introduce our next four panelists, and I'll share a little bit of their background. Karen Hyun is the Chief of Staff for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, where she is helping to build a climate-ready nation and embed equity across NOAA's climate science and services. Karen has championed climate and conservation issues across the executive branch of the federal government, including as the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks at the Department of Interior, and Senior Advisor to the Secretary of Commerce, among other roles. She also served as professional staff and a NOAA Sea Grant Now Fellow on the National Resource Committee in the U.S. House of Representatives. Alani Wilhelm is the Chief Strategy and External Relations Officer at Niatiro, an organization focused on Indigenous guardianship and the role of Indigenous peoples have played and can continue to play in protecting lands, waters, and ocean areas. She joined Niatiro in October 2023 after serving as the Assistant Director for Ocean Conservation, Climate, and Equity at the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. Prior to that, she served as the Senior Vice President for Oceans at Conservation International. Fran Castro is a native Chamorro and a daughter of the Northern Mariana Islands. She currently resides in Guam and works as the Associate Director for the University of Guam Sea Grant Program. In her role, she manages the program, but also focuses on building capacity and environmental management for young adults. Prior to relocating to Guam, Fran was the director of Coastal Management Resources Program in the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands. Kai Tran is a Youth Leadership Council member at Earth Echo International. At Earth Echo, Kai's worked to uplift young youth voices in ocean conservation and advocate for the current proposed Chumath Heritage National Marine Sanctuary. In addition to his service with Earth Echo, Kai is currently a graduate student at Duke University, pursuing a Master's of Environmental Management with a primary concentration in community engagement and environmental justice. Kai is spending this summer working for the William Penn Foundation in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, through the Yale Environmental Fellows Program. So welcome all. Very excited to have you all with us today. I'd love to start by asking each of our panelists to briefly describe what first motivated you to work in your respective fields. And in a couple sentences, what has your professional journey looked like since then? Let's start with you, Fran. Oh, you're on mute.
Yep. Hafa day, everyone. It's a very early morning in Guam. First, thank you for including me in this roundtable. I'm honored to be here in the presence of some very esteemed panelists today. So I have been in the environmental field for about 25 years, and I started my career back in Saipan, where I'm from, working for a regulatory agency, actually doing administrative work. And I really didn't expect to be in this field. I just kind of stumbled upon it at this regulatory agency. And my boss at the time, after a month of working there, asked me to be a manager for one of his programs because the person running it had left. And at first I was hesitant because what do I know about the environment at the time? This was back in the 90s. I mean, it wasn't much. And I didn't go there to do environmental work, but I was shoved into the job. And today I really consider myself very fortunate to be given that opportunity. So I worked there for about 13 years and I became the director for about 4 years. But in between all these years that I've worked there, what really resonated with me was, gosh, if I didn't know at the start of this, about the environment and what was going on and how to protect it, I could already imagine that not very many people on the island knew about environmental issues. So what I really found was that there was a lack of awareness. So I helped to set up a campaign to increase awareness. It's a very small island, so you really target many different issues, right? So we started the awareness campaign. It was the first ever environmental symposium and environmental expo, which actually still lives today. And I had asked those that were doing projects, environmental projects around the island to come and talk about the work that they're doing, to come and showcase their work to the community and, the school kids, because that's where we start to educate. But after doing all that and over the years, what we're still doing, I felt that there was still something missing. Why were the communities inclined to participate in our efforts? They were just not very trusting of the government. So with a group of friends, I helped to start the first conservation nonprofit, the Mariana Islands Nature Alliance, because I felt we weren't doing enough, and it's almost never well received if a government employee was trying to get the message across that we felt we needed to take a different approach. And this was back in 2005. So we started a community-based nonprofit organization with support from the Nature Conservancy, and we wanted MENA to be that place for the community to be able to get information about environmental issues, to volunteer in conservation projects, to learn about what was going on, because then sometimes you just really need to get your hands wet to really appreciate your surroundings. But MENA was also created to build capacity for young adults because there's just not too many of us on the island that are in the natural resource environmental field. And so we started that. And then I even got to work with like the clergy because the bishop had at the time heard about climate change and impacts, and he was like, oh, I want to help to try to get the word out to the community. So they asked me to come and address the clergy and to talk to them about climate change, and they asked for ways to try to get the message about it out to the community. So I said, how about you try to incorporate it into your homily? Because a lot of people come to church, and so they did, and it was very well received. They talked about God's gift to us, and the earth, everything, the natural resources, and so that was another way of educating the community. And in turn, they let me use the area around their church to do a peaceful demonstration on the 350 initiative when it was very active back then, and it was named 350 right after 350 parts per million, the safe concentration for carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. But fast forward, I moved to Guam, and I thought I'd never work again in environmental field. I thought I've been doing this for 20 years. But then I connected with a former intern, Austin Shelton, who is like now my boss, and we kind of switched roles, and I started working again, doing similar environmental efforts, because the Pacific Islands are at the brunt of all the climate impacts. Sea level is rising. Some of our sisters and brothers in the neighboring islands here in Micronesia will be displaced. Our food security is threatened. Storms are getting stronger. Our reefs, which are supposed to protect us, are declining as sea temperatures rise and other disturbances come about. And we contribute very little to it, so we're here at present day. We have many more resources at our hand with all these initiatives that we're excited about to continue our work, and we're still educating, still working with communities, still trying to find ways to adapt to the impacts of climate change. But I'm still as happy as ever to continue pushing forward, because at the end of the day, it really is very rewarding when you make a difference in people's lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen?
I just see if you can hear me. That's not okay. Great. Hi, everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me to this event to celebrate AAHNPI month. Really great to be part of this panel. Be standing beside current colleagues like Christina and Erica and Elise, and former colleagues like Alani. Fran, we have a connection. I did a lot of work with the representatives from Guam and AAHNPI in the past, and obviously the Sea Grant partnership. And Kai, I know that Earth Echo has been a huge partner in our Young Changemakers Fellowship, which is a new program we set up in this administration to engage youth in climate solutions. So it's really a pleasure to be here with these great colleagues who are, we need everybody to do this work and engage in this work. And so to be here standing with partners is really wonderful. You know, my journey has been very focused on sort of the environmental science and adaptation side of the house in terms of addressing climate change. Obviously, climate change has a lot of different facets. My background has been a lot in the ocean sciences and in the coastal adaptation space. And I've been really fortunate to have a lot of great experiences, which I attribute a lot to my background and my heritage. I'm Korean American. My parents immigrated here almost 60 years ago now. They came from pretty much nothing. My dad lived in North Korea before the country was split in half, was forced into South Korea, basically had nothing. So education was the thing they prioritized most for themselves and for me and my sisters. They moved us to the United States and just embedded us like with the value of making sure that we had a good education, that we found passion in what we were doing, and that we really took care of community. And so I took that into, we all took that into different paths, my sisters and I, but I decided to explore environmental science. Obviously, climate change was a thing over the course of my career that was something that was questioned for a long time and then has now, I think, really cemented. And that has been a really positive movement, I think, over the last 25, 30 years. So thankful for everyone's efforts to translate that science, really communicate that, really see what the impacts are, tell those stories. And then really, I think, take sort of that faith that has been given to us and really try to work towards solutions. So I'm really proud to be part of both. I worked in the Obama administration and have now worked in the Biden administration, and have been really proud to be working part of a huge team that's really trying to address the climate crisis from the places where we sit. We all have different levers that we get to pull, and I think we're pulling as hard as we can to really try to make a difference. And I'm really thankful to be able to be here and try to do my part while I sit in this job. So I'll turn back to you, Christina.
Awesome. Kai, how about you?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm honored to be here amongst such great climate leaders in the AAHNPI community. I grew up in Western Washington State, which is an extremely beautiful place with abundant natural spaces and opportunities to spend outside. But I hadn't really felt connected to nature or had a specific passion or desire. However, up until before high school, I had an amazing opportunity to go on a cross-country road trip with my dad, which was centered around national parks. And this was really transformative for me. I immediately became passionate in spending time outside and working to conserve the environment. This led me to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo in the beautiful Central Coast of California, where I pursued a Bachelor's of Science in Environmental Management and Protection with 2 minors in Political Science and Law and Society. And during this time, I was able to get involved with on-campus sustainability groups and efforts and join the local Sunrise Movement chapter. These opportunities quickly grew my advocacy skills and passions, and subsequently led me to join Earth Echo International as an Ocean Echo 30 by 30 fellow in support of the Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuary, which is the first indigenously proposed and led national marine sanctuary. And I had previously been volunteering for them. During this fellowship, I was able to develop a campaign plan that targeted outreach for college-age youth in the community to garner support for the sanctuary. And after that, I was able to graduate Cal Poly and move to North Carolina to attend Duke University's Nicholas School of the Environment, where I'm currently pursuing a Master's of Environmental Management. My motivation to continue my studies with a focus on environmental justice largely stems from my identity. I possess a mixed ethnic and cultural background, including being first generation half Vietnamese. And my dad's family came to the U.S. as refugees from the Vietnam War and had to live all over the U.S. Seeking opportunity, unfortunately experiencing extreme poverty and gun violence. And despite these struggles, they were able to come out prosperous. I was able to be raised in a fairly safe and nurturing environment, and became extremely influenced by the stories of struggle and resilience that were told by my family, and since became especially passionate about centering equity and justice in my professional aspirations. From my studies, I've been able to get to work for environmental justice organizations in the South, and I'm now working as a Yale Environmental Fellow, which is a DEI Pathways program that works to place graduate students from historically underrepresented backgrounds in professional environmental experiences, where I am now in beautiful Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, working for the William Penn Foundation, supporting their Environment and Public Spaces program. I've also continued my work with Earth Echo International as a Youth Leadership Council member, aiming to elevate youth voices in ocean conservation and continually advocate for the Chumash Heritage National Marine Sanctuary.
Amazing. And last but not least, over to you, Ailani.
Yeah, Velina, aloha mai kako. I'm Aulani, and I am from Honolulu. I'm actually originally from Maui, but I'm calling in from Honolulu, where I was largely schooled and educated. And I guess somewhat like Fran. Well, first of all, but it is really wonderful to be with all of you, and thank you for this kind opportunity to join this panel. I think like Fran, and it's great to see you, Fran. It's been a while. Who knew you did all those awesome things? You know, if you're in this field long enough, you tangle up again with each other over the years, and it's really wonderful to see. But I think I am an accidental environmentalist, if you will. It's not anything I chose. I thought I was interested in kind of law and policy always. My brother and I were the first on both sides of our family to have the opportunity for education beyond high school. And so we didn't really know how to be advised or what you could, go into. And we didn't have awesome minors and majors, back then, like you're able to experience, Kai. I think that's really wonderful. So we kind of, I went away to school like most kids are advised to do at that time. Like, you don't stay home. If you want to go and make something, you go away to school, and you end up learning a lot of valuable things, but sometimes that pulls you away from actually your own home place. And as a Native Hawaiian growing up in my mother's culture, right, that was something, the return home was really important. When I came home, I had to ask myself, well, I've had this opportunity, what can I really do that is in the betterment of my people and my place? And when you grow up on an island, you realize how finite everything is. You realize that seemingly small mistakes and decisions that could be made even in a continental level, when you make them on an island, like, they're massive and sometimes absolutely irrecoverable. And so if we wanted to have a shot at having my family, my community, and the beautiful islands that I had the privilege of being raised by persist, that you had to take care of the land and sea, which for us is Aina, that which feeds, literally, not just the land, the ocean, the spiritual things, all of the things that come in the tangible and intangible culture connected to Hawaii. So that's how I kind of got into it. But we have this term in Hawaii called kuleana, and it's the duality of privilege and responsibility. So when you are gifted with a certain skill set and you're given a responsibility, it's truly a privilege to hold, even if that responsibility feels heavy. And I had the opportunity to start working at the time at kind of the state level Department of Land and Natural Resources, and began to kind of collect mentors, if you will. I don't know if I collected them or they collected me, but these incredible elders who had deep knowledge in all of in oceans in particular. And when an opportunity came forward to help lead the protection of what is now called Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument and World Heritage Site, these elders tapped me on the shoulder and basically said, we need you to go do this. I was like, I don't know what that is. I don't know how to do that. And they're like, yeah, it kind of doesn't matter. We'll be here with you. And asked me to go do that. And so went right into a completely unknown and area, but tapped into not only that they were there to help advise, but that instinct in me that was more about law and policy and justice and strategy. And I guess I kind of became kind of like the gap filler, right? Where there was a need. So it wasn't like something motivated me. I didn't have a moment on a mountain or a particular, a lot of times people ask me that. And I'm like, I didn't have that. I come from a very utilitarian culture. Like, what is needed? Go do it. Like, somebody has to do it. So put up your hand and get busy, right? It's not kind of like we have this luxury or of being able to choose the amazing thing. It's like there's a need, there's a set of problems that need to be solved. And in my case, some elders who basically gave me very strong encouragement to move in that direction. And I'm blessed because at the end of it, if you listen and you really understand what your own kuleana is, sometimes you get nudged into it. And over time, your kuleana changes as you are able to take on different kinds of responsibility. It becomes new privileges and those doors open. And I actually heard that a lot in what I heard from other people's stories, is like you kind of hold on and also not let other people tell you what your kuleana is, but do the work of finding it yourself. Because when it's truly authentic and it really is what is called for you at that time in your life, I think you will be guided toward that next thing to be able to be of service in the very next thing. And so that's kind of been my story, my kind of journey. Is it has been maybe a series of seemingly accidental things that actually have completely made sense and integrated, most of which I never looked for. Those kinds of, that kuleana finds you if you're open to it.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for the discussion. Let's shift to some audience questions. Karen, here is a question for you. Shelley from Virginia asked, what is the Biden-Harris administration, particularly NOAA, doing to advance coastal resilience and conservation for AANHPI communities?
Great question, Shelley. I'm really proud to be part of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Our bread and butter is obviously studying the planet and understanding what it does. We do a lot of adaptation work too, especially on the coast, so ocean coast, Great Lakes coast. We have been really fortunate in this administration to get approximately $6 billion extra dollars for climate solution work. A lot of that is going to coastal solutions, so nature-based solutions that we can implement on the coast to help people and communities and environments on the coast withstand the impacts of climate change, whether it's flooding or sea level rise or stream storms. Any of those things, if we deploy nature to help protect us and to help us grow in the face of those things, we will be stronger, and we really believe that. We have been doing that across the country. We've been doing that in particular in Hawaii as well. So we have a lot of partnership with the territories in Hawaii out there. I'll just mention one other small thing that I think is really neat that is related to all this. But when we started here in this administration, we really wanted to make sure that we were embedding equity in all the work that we do. So we set about as a leadership team going to different regions around the country and sitting with communities and really listening to underserved communities, tribal communities, about what their needs are. So anywhere from Native Alaskans, where their communities are falling into the ocean, or Native Hawaiians who were dealing with issues of farming and how their farming was changing because of the climate, or communities in the Southwest where heat is really impacting them. So we would sit with those communities, and we have invested time and people resources and small amounts of financial resources to co-develop science products that include Indigenous knowledge in order to provide services that they actually need and will use. We'll figure that is our approach here, but it's really, really powerful, both in terms of work with that community, but also really grounding, I think, for the agency is a new way of doing business and a new model. So those are the two examples I give.
Thanks, Erin. Here is a question for you, Fran and Ailani. Darcy from Honolulu, Hawaii asks, how can stakeholders better integrate the knowledge of the AANHPI community, including Indigenous peoples, into their approach to climate and conservation?
I could go. So I think we're seeing a lot of environmental justice efforts through the Justice 40 initiative, and I'm really a big believer of keeping communities informed and, you know, making them be a part of environmental decision making. I think we're currently in my capacity at Guam Sea Grant, we started incorporating traditional local knowledge into the work that we do. In fact, not just Guam Sea Grant, but many Sea Grant programs. And we're starting to implement projects that bring together scientists, cultural practitioners, and community members to address these environmental challenges that we face. And, you know, often these projects result in innovative solutions that are culturally appropriate and scientifically sound. And it just really enhances the effectiveness of our environmental initiatives, and we really foster deeper connections with the community and their natural surroundings by including them. So thank you.
I'll just agree with everything that Fran just said and maybe add just two small points. One is that you know, the integration of knowledge, especially when it's about when it involves Indigenous people, you can't disassociate the knowledge from the people, right? And that's embedded in what I hear friends saying is bringing people together, right? And it's about relationships, not transactional, right? So you can't hold it like we need to go get something. And I'm not saying that that was embedded in the question, but sometimes people hold it as like a task to do versus a set of relationships to build that actually starting to think about better decision making overall and how to do that and how to do the integration is about building relationships with communities. And, you know, there's broad community, but then there's specific communities. So as you start to do that, you'll see, oh, wow, I can, you know, there's even more I can learn from this group of people that, you know, how else can we do that? And find mechanisms that are already organized by those communities, right? Not only thinking about how I create a meeting and then be more inclusive, but how might I build a relationship where I might actually be invited in to a way that peoples are already getting together to be able to listen and hear and understand and of how the issues that we're trying to solve are actually directly integrated, even if the language is being used differently or are not separated, right? Kind of in the Western world, sometimes, you know, you have education as a silo or climate as a silo or something else, right? Housing as a silo, when truly in communities, they're all connected. We heard the kind of origin stories of Karen and of Kai and their family. You can't separate kind of all of the socioeconomic conditions that for their family and families like them from the questions that are being asked, because it's all in perspective. So I think holding problems like that is going to be helpful moving forward with whomever you're working with.
Thank you both for those thoughtful answers. Kai, our next question is to you. So you share a background in ocean conservation and in particular amplifying voices of young people. A question we received from several audience members across the country is, how can we ensure that young people are actively engaged in the work, particularly from the AANHPI community?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think this is absolutely critical to ask for a couple of reasons. Firstly, our youth are incredibly passionate and energetic about today's issues, and we're acutely aware of what's happening and possess innovative ideas on how to address our most pressing climate issues. Secondly, we the youth will inherit the earth and ocean that has been left by those before us, and ensuring that we have some form of agency and autonomy to contribute to decisions that impact our future is essential, because otherwise you're essentially excluding our own participation in our future, which to me doesn't make much sense and can risk harming us even more. And I think this is especially relevant for those that belong to the AANHPI community. As my co-speakers, amazing folks, have already kind of displayed, the connection to the ocean and our earth for those that are Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander cannot be understated. It is tied to their culture identity, and it is intrinsic to their knowledge and stewardship. And for Asian Americans, I think this is extremely important, as many Asian Americans exist in frontline communities and deserve increased access to the environment and a voice in conservation issues for their communities and for the ocean and environment at large. I think, unfortunately, youth engagement in these conservation issues has not always been prioritized. It is increasing, but there's still more work to do. And I think for any of the young people here, if you find yourself not being able to find those opportunities, I highly encourage you to start it on your own. That's a regret that I had in high school, is not like being a self-starter and initiating something because there wasn't a lot of opportunity where I lived. But if there is opportunity, then I highly encourage you to work in those communities to support local environmental issues. Because having that experience and connection can really help grow you both in your aspirations and in your community socially. For those that are looking to involve AA and HPI youth, I suggest you work to create opportunities to involve youth. I think Earth Echo International is a shining example of an organization that has centered youth involvement in ocean conservation and has brought youth from the AA and HPI community in their efforts, which has involved creating programs. And to that end, if you're looking to involve youth, you want to create those programs. You want to compensate youth for their work and knowledge and solicit time and involvement that can activate their participation. I think education is also a really important component. Many youth may not initially be aware of the issues that afflict them or their connection to the climate issues, and I think this is true as well for the AAH and HPI community. However, I can assure you that many of us are quick to learn and willing to commit that time and energy to put in the work that is necessary to ensuring that we have a safe and healthy environment.
Thank you, Kai. And what a great transition to our last question, recognizing that we are coming, unfortunately, to the end of our webinar. Here is a last question to all of our panelists from Faye in Redwood, California. She asks, what can those listening do to support AANHPI climate, conservation, and environmental justice efforts in their own communities and across the country? Fran?
Well, my message is to participate in initiatives, because these days we really must rely on your voice and your ideas to make it better for everyone.
I'll jump in. So environment, climate, conservation, these issues are issues in and of themselves, but they're in places, right? And sometimes we can get caught up thinking about an issue as separate from the place where that issue takes place. So first of all, get to know your own places is my encouragement. Develop a relationship, what we would call a pilina, with your place. That helps to be in a mindset of, well, what does that mean for other people in their places? How do we think about these big, overarching, very heavy global issues, but really ground them in places? Because that's where people live, and that's where these issues are going to be magnified and are going to be different in every place. The issues will be the same, but how they manifest and how they affect people will be different. And so just kind of have a place-based mindset in thinking about your own space. And then that will help you to really build kind of empathy and sympathy for others in their places and be able to, again, develop some of those relationships, not only with place, but with each other.
I think it's important to listen and to elevate the voices and thoughts of those that belong to the AAHNPI community and ensure that they're active and involved with the work that you or people in your community are doing to advance environmental conservation. And if you don't see that you have people in your network or social circle that belongs to this group, then maybe you can reflect on that and look to seek people that can contribute and bring that diversity that you might not previously have had in your work or in your community.
Yeah, let's stump on all of that. Would say it's definitely about building relationships even outside of the relationships you might normally have, to bring those voices to the table. Making sure that you have a diverse table in the mix, really, really important. And the last thing I'll just say, to put in a plug for NOAA, is we have the Young Changemakers Fellowship, which is for high school students. to come engage with our leadership. And then we have a whole bunch of internships up on our website. So if you just Google NOAA internships, there's a lot of opportunities to engage with us in our science and our service work. So.
Amazing. Thank you all so much for, thank you to our amazing speakers and panelists and all of you audience attendees who've tuned in to celebrate the environmental leadership of the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander community. This concludes today's webinar. Thank you so much and have a great rest of the day.